they really decided on a 3 houses sequel, huh? Hey guys, Z here. It's not often that we get news on a mainline entry, but I gotta say, the last thing I thought they'd do is close off the direct with one, and honestly, the game looks pretty great. I had a feeling as I was watching the trailer, but the moment they showed off the first character here, I was like, this looks way too close to Saros to not be Fire Emblem related. And then, you know, the creator sword looking blade and the answerer right after. But hey, it's Fire Emblem, so that's what counts, right? I will say I am kind of shocked that they decided on a 3 houses sequel more than anything else. But I'd imagine given the crazy success of that game that they decided it was a worthwhile endeavor. And, you know, that makes sense. It's 3 houses. People are still arguing about it to this day. And to that end, I hope it works out because more Fire Emblem is really cool. Now, as for what the trailer had to show, they started it off in an arena gladiator setting, which is, you know, that's pretty neat. A lot of the battles shown in the trailer seem to be taking place in there as well, so I have to wonder how much of an emphasis the arena will play in the game. Of course, that might just be with Kai specifically. Kai Sai, I hope I'm pronouncing it right, the new main character that you see playing immediately in, as well as other areas in the game with Theodora, the Saros-looking character, and Dietrich, the Alucard-looking character, I guess, going about their own things. They all have access to a storage option in battle, which gives me the impression of that being the case. They all have their own individual routes, kind of like a 3 houses or something. Whoa, where have I seen that one before? I'm really hoping this is how I thought 3 houses was going to be, where everybody has their own specific routes that aren't in the same 3 to 4 locations all the time with a bunch of repeat maps. That was one of my biggest issues with 3 houses. A lot of the maps were just reused and didn't really make for a lot of exciting gameplay. Sometimes they'd flip the map upside down, which, you know, that was something, I guess, but I'm hopeful that they took that into account for this new entry, and it seems like they did because they already shut off a good amount of areas that just aren't in the Gladiator, just with the other characters, although this is under the working assumption that this is going to be the case, but who really knows? I do have hope, though. You can see Dietrich in one of the battles near the middle of the trailer, so I don't think they're always going to be separated. I don't think it's just going to be, oh, you choose this character, they do their own thing, this character, they do their own thing, or maybe it will. Who can say? That or it's the literal beginning of the game, and you know, you could see 2 of the characters they showed off as playable main characters just in the same map, so eventually it might just branch off and do whatever afterward. I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case here. You could also see in a lot of their individual combats that they all belong to different factions, which is pretty cool, but that's also why I think it's going to be that way. It seems like you could just follow 3 different stories based on Kai, Theodora, and Dietrich. Where have I seen that one before? Okay, it's actually 4 most likely with Lita, since she also has the storage option thing there, but that wouldn't have worked otherwise, so, you know. Still, I gotta wonder if they're not going to stretch themselves too thin with this, since they also had to write several routes for the original, and it could have definitely been better at times. Still, it's cool to see that they're going to be in a bunch of different areas and locales following their own paths. 3 houses really definitely could have explored that more. I'm hopeful that's going to be the case here. That said, I really hope they took all the feedback and this game turns out to be really awesome. Not that I think this speaks for everybody, but I saw a lot of people, just a lot of people saying, what if they took 3 houses story with engaged gameplay? And then they decided we're still going to have 3 houses gameplay, but it does look pretty good, so you have the engaged part of it. I don't know. I'm hopeful that they are listening at the very least, and it doesn't end up being a lot of the same issues I had with the last entry. Only time will tell with that. Now, I'm going to jump ahead real quick on this one, but is it crazy to think that this might take place in the past? The setting does look really old overall, and I'm not really given the impression that this would take place after the events of 3 houses, but most importantly, I don't think they want to canonize any route, so I could definitely see it being a prequel of some kind. I can't wait to be completely wrong about that, though, when the game drops. That said, if it is a prequel, I am kind of curious on some of the other characters that we could see, if they may be a bit different, like a really old Setith and Flayn. I don't think Rhea would show up. Well, actually, maybe she would. I'm not too familiar with my 3 houses lore. I'm sorry. You guys have to correct me on that. Still, at the end of the video, they showed off an adult Sothis, and if memory serves me right, I believe this was an unused design for a past Sothis of some kind, which which could lend itself into the idea of taking place before the events of Three Houses. That would be really cool. Also, if I remember correctly, and I might be completely wrong on this because again, I don't remember my Three Houses lore, I'm pretty sure Sothis just goes away before the end of part 1, so she just never comes back unless I think you marry her or something. I don't remember. There's just a lot of weird stuff in Three Houses. But whatever they decide to do, I think we all know that it's going to lead to another generation of Fire Emblem Three Houses discourse. They did bring back the hub world again, and you know, personally, I'm not the biggest fan of hub worlds in Fire Emblem. I think they really had it right when it came to like the Tellius barracks, but they're never going to do that again, and I don't expect them to. My biggest worry is that it's just going to be a repeat of the monastery, which for what it was worth, I think was good on one playthrough. It was a really good narrative set piece, and every time you beat a chapter, all the dialogue fully voiced would get updated to reflect whatever happened. I really did like that. That was a really fun time, but I will not say it was fun after the first playthrough. It did become a really big slog afterward. And in Engage, I just kind of ignored the hub world because you can do that, which is nice. I don't want to necessarily ignore what they're presenting here, but I also don't want it to be so over-encompassing that it just ends up being like the monastery again. The last thing I really want to go through is just another monastery situation where I don't feel like playing through the game more than once, which would not be ideal. I do have hope that it will be the case, especially given what the Somnial was. Although I didn't really care for the Somnial either, I will say that generally speaking, it was a lot better to go through that than the monastery multiple times. And you know what else is back? Cress, combat arts, and I wrote combat arts twice, so yeah, it's twice. I think I meant to put gambits. It really is Three Houses again, isn't it? But now there's something called Blaze Arts, and we have no idea what it does. However, what we do know, and you know, it's more than no idea, technically, is that it costs HP, at least according to the graphic here. I do have to wonder just how much they're going to be adding to the overall gameplay, but it is interesting seeing that we're just getting more mechanics in the game. At least seen with Laurita here, she could summon a demonic beast, and I would assume these either vary on a class-to-class basis or character basis. It says she's a hunter, but considering everything is in the name of Song of Something, I'm more inclined to believe it's a character-based thing, although we'll have to see more on that later next year, but it looks like it could be pretty interesting. Also, weapon durability is back, and I don't know how to feel about that one. I don't mind it one way or the other, but it's definitely something I've gotten used to not having in my Fire Emblem entries, but I don't think that means it's a bad thing. They do change it whenever they feel like it, and it's a small enough change that keeps it fresh from entry to entry. Three Houses did have it, which makes sense as to why it's back in the literal sequel, although Engage did drop weapon durability. That said, one of the biggest things from memory is that I didn't really like the durability, at least when combined with the combat arts, because some weapons just went through their durability really fast, and if you wanted to repair some of the weaponry, it cost a lot. I think it's why I barely used the Creator's Sword in Three Houses, but hopefully I just won't have that worry here. We do have to wait. I'm hopeful. I am hopeful. If it's anything Fire Emblem does get right in most of their entries, is that the gameplay tends to be really good, so I have no reason to doubt it. In worst case scenario, because it's not really that big of a deal, I'll just get used to it again. Also, specifically on Lita's menu, there's a manage gauge option, which I don't think was something in Three Houses, but it's been a bit, so tell me if I'm wrong there. The most I can assume is that it will have to be related to the Miller's Turn Wheel Divine Pulse mechanics we've seen in the past few entries, but you don't really see that on all the other menus. It might just be another exclusive thing to her. Also, with it being grayed out, I can't really imagine it would be tied to that, even though I just said that. There's really just not a lot of information to go off of, but I have to wonder just how many of these mechanics are going to add to the overall gameplay, and this is all we are just seeing. They could add a lot more stuff, but hey, maybe we'll get a Fire Emblem Direct next year and they'll show off a lot of really cool things. I'm hopeful it'll be pretty good. I have no doubt. Maybe some doubt. Hopefully no doubts by the end of it. I really love saying the word hope, don't I? 3 hopes. Haha, get it? Subscribe. Otherwise, I can't really see much else in the combat-related areas or pretty much any other part of the game that isn't just really deep character analysis and I guess the Dimitri-sounding main character, which is probably played by Chris Hackney again, unless I'm being blind. I'm probably being blind, aren't I? Also, unrelated, but the enemies seem to react funnily to an oncoming attack. I don't really have any point to make with it, but it's funny just seeing a bunch of cavaliers slide backwards before getting struck with a bronze spear. But on the topic, the game does look really, really good. Three Houses really wasn't that good looking, to put it lightly, and I don't think you'll find anybody that disagrees, but Engage really stepped it up. It was one of the better looking Switch games in my opinion, and it seems like this is going to follow suit. And yeah, that's all I really got. This has been Z does a really messy overview of a 2-minute Fire Emblem trailer that somebody is probably going to do better than me, but that's okay. I just wanted to talk about it because Fire Emblem is really cool. It might be a bit too early to say, but it seems like it's going to be a mixture of the best parts of Three Houses and Engage, which has me pretty excited, but just the announcement of a new Fire Emblem is really awesome, and it comes out next year. It's going to be a really good time, I feel. I do have my own concerns, but there's no reason to really worry about it or mention them here at the moment. But yeah, Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave. Are you excited? Is this what you wanted out of the next Fire Emblem? Let me know down below, and welcome back, Three Houses. We will truly never, ever escape you.